I'm still traveling through north of Norway, trying to get a lot of nice bird pictures together with my friend Nicolas Stettler. And we left Varanger by now. We are now a bit more western, and already the drive here was pretty cool. So we were going a bit inland, a bit along the coast, and there were these amazing fjord landscapes. We had a beautiful sunset with some nice clouds, and next to the street there was a small waterfall and a creek, and it was absolutely beautiful. We are now in an Airbnb for 2 nights, just because it's actually quite nice to have a shower after many days of camping. I was happy to do a laundry, to wash all my clothes, and also to recharge the power banks, because during our camping, we were not on a camping, we were just somewhere out there in the nature, which is the cool thing about Norway, that you can just do that. So this meant that when I was importing pictures, sorting pictures, editing pictures, importing the videos, this all needed some power. The same for charging the cameras, my microphone, the GoPro, my mobile phone. So I have several power banks with me that I used for charging my devices, but eventually they ran out. So I was happy to charge them now in the Airbnb. Obviously, our plan was not to just hang in the Airbnb the whole day. So I came to this lake here already in the morning and now again in the afternoon, trying to take pictures of the red-necked loon, seagulls that you can hear, and also some ducks. And in this video I want to give you some tips for bird photography, especially birds in flight. During our stay on Varanger, we had some amazing weather with just blue sky, no clouds at all, which gave us really some nice options, some nice light, some for backlit images, and really using this last sunlight was amazing, or the first sunlight. But this also meant that we had a long break during the day where we didn't shoot. So usually between 5 a.m. I would say until 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. we did not really take pictures because the light was not good enough. This gave us a lot of time to cook, to import the pictures and that, but it also meant that we had a bit of a crazy rhythm. And here it seems a bit more chilled because for these 3 days, like yesterday, today and also tomorrow, it's supposed to be mainly overcast, and this means there is not really so much point to wake up at 2 in the morning to get the sunrise if there is just grey sky the whole day. I don't have a problem with this diffuse light because it just means that I have more options in which direction I want to shoot. The problem that I have now, maybe you can see it already, it's quite windy. And this means that on the lake we don't have a clear, nice surface, but we have a lot of waves that kind of break the reflection and also break the nice colors. So I find this in general quite unattractive when taking pictures of waterfowl if you have a lot of waves. One option that you can try is to go a bit more to the shore, because often there it's a bit more calm. In the morning it was really the case that part of the lake was still calm, but it was in the wrong direction in terms of the light, so it was not very useful. And now there is no calm space, or only a very small one, and there's not many birds, and because it's so small it would mean that the background is very close, so I don't get this nice out of focus background that I'm looking for, so it's also not so much worth for me. But what can I do now? Well, I can take flight shots, because the loons and the seagulls, they are flying around, the seagulls a lot, the loons a bit, and for flight shots it can still work quite nicely. Not necessarily the moment that they land, because then we still have these waves and not so nice colors in the water, but you can see maybe behind me there is kind of a stretch of the shore and some vegetation and then some trees, and this gives a nice greenish background that looks quite cool in my opinion. So what I try to do is basically take pictures when the bird is flying in front of this stretch. I don't like the pictures against the sky so much. Pictures of birds in flight against the sky, they can work, but the sky needs to be a bit more special. Now it's just too grayish and not really cool for me. If you have like first morning light, last evening light, this can also look cool. For example, here is a picture of an osprey that I took a few weeks ago, and I actually like it, even if it's just against the sky. So I get asked quite often which camera settings I use for bird in flight photography, and the question is always, it depends a bit on the type of photography I want. If it's backlit, if it's on an overcast day, maybe I want to go for high key, for low key images. But let's assume now that I want to take these standard images that I mentioned against this green background, and then it depends on the bird, especially for the shutter speed. Generally speaking, the smaller and faster your target, your subject is, the shorter your shutter speeds should be. So for the loons, I was quite comfortable with 1/2500th of a second. For the seagulls, I think also 1/2000 or maybe even 1600th of a second would have been enough. For the Arctic terns, for example, at the moment where they're like hovering and looking down to the water, you can even do cool things with a much longer shutter speed because their body is relatively steady and just the wings are moving, so you can play a bit with the motion blur. If you have ducks flying through, they are generally faster, so there I prefer to take a shutter speed of at least 1/2500th of a second, maybe even shorter. In general, I don't want to change the shutter speed all the time if I move from one bird to the other, because this can be quite quick. There is a bird flying to me and I just go to this bird, acquire focus and take images, so I don't want to mess with the settings. So in general, if I have more or less enough light and during the day, this is not a problem at all, I just select the shutter speed that I feel comfortable to take pictures for all the species that I expect here. So today this was between 1/2500th of a second and I think 1/4000th of a second. As I mentioned, I have a lot of light, so it doesn't matter so much if I'm shooting at 800 or 1000 ISO. The difference is not so big in the end. I prefer to keep the aperture wide open just to have a smoother background, even though I know this means that I have a higher risk that if the focus is on the chest of the bird, the head will already not be sharp anymore if the bird is flying in my direction. Or if it's also flying in my direction, maybe the head is sharp, chest still okay, but the tail not anymore. I'm okay with this. I prefer this homogeneous or soft background over having the bird completely in focus, but that's something you need to decide for yourself. And also, if the background would be a bit more homogeneous, let's say the mountains behind or some hills behind, then I would also maybe stop down a bit to f5.6 or something like that. But here the forest in the background is still rather close and the trees have a slightly different color, so I prefer to shoot wide open. And yeah, I already mentioned the ISO, so that's it for the settings of the camera. For the lens, here I have my 600mm f4. The other telephoto lens that I have is the 100-300, but that's a bit short here, especially for the loons. So I use this basically the whole time, and I actually used it handheld. I get also asked this question a lot, if I shoot tripod or handheld, and for birds in flight I generally prefer to shoot handheld, except if it's really for a long time at the same spot. Then a tripod can make sense if there's a lot of action or if I wait for something to happen. Let's assume there is a kingfisher perched on a branch of a tree and I know it will go hunt in the next 5, 10, 15 minutes. Honestly, I don't want to wait like this for 15 minutes. I cannot wait for like this for 15 minutes. My arms will get tired much earlier. Here for the loons, it's a bit different. Usually I see when they start taking off, I just grab my camera and take the pictures. And after 1 minute or so, it's over anyway. And this brings me to the next point, which is the position that I use for shooting. So because the water is not clear, I'm not aiming at getting the image when they take off or when they land, like the first moment of takeoff or last moment of landing when they basically touch the water. I want to take the pictures when they are like ascending, basically this stretch of green in the background, or the moment where they're landing, also in this stretch of green. So this means I usually have a bit more time, because when they take off you can usually hear them quite clearly. So then I hear them, I look where it is, and I can take the camera and take the pictures. And then they usually fly around, they circle the lake like 2 or 3 times, quite high, so not ideal for photography, until they eventually come down again. And then it's also a bit of luck how they land. If they land on the other side of the lake, they're too far away, no nice pictures. And if they come from behind and land, fly over my head and land, it will also not be great, because it would just be a butt shot. But sometimes you're lucky and they fly in parallel or even approaching you, which can give some nice opportunities. And therefore I prefer not to be completely on the ground, but a bit higher. It just gives me the possibility to shoot at eye level, and this can be either standing or sitting. Here I prefer sitting because I'm already a tiny bit above the level of the lake, as you can maybe see, and it's just a bit more comfortable. And comfort can be key sometimes in photography, because the more comfortable I am here in my position, the longer I will be able to hold the lens and the more precise I will be able to follow the bird. So here I have the advantage that if I wait, I can just have the camera or the lens basically like this on my legs, and it's a comfortable position. And once I see the bird, I'm basically ready immediately. If I'm standing up and I put the lens next to me so that I don't need to carry it the whole time, it takes a bit longer if I'm standing up to like go down, take the lens, take it up. So that's why I often prefer sitting, and it's more comfortable. But again, it might depend. If the birds are usually flying a bit higher, then standing up can definitely give you an advantage, because if the bird is flying at this level here, you can see where my finger is, it would be against the sky. However, if you take a higher position, you will have it again against the green background. So here it's just a bit trial and error, basically seeing how the birds fly, how high they are in the sky or how low they are before they land, and then you can find a good position in most of the situations. My Canon R5 can shoot up to 20 frames per second, and for flight shots I'm very happy about having this option. Even though you might think that loons are not flying that fast, it's just about having more options to pick from afterwards. So in terms of the wing position, maybe if I take 5 images, in 2 of them I don't like the wing position at all, and 2 of them they're okay, and 1 has a really great wing position. So it's good to have more images, and there is more factors like sometimes there is another bird flying through in the background, especially a seagull that is more or less white. Doesn't look good if it's in the background. Then the bird is obviously not stationary, so it flies by, so the background itself is changing. And finally, if the bird flies by like in parallel to you, when you start tracking it, you have it from like side and a bit from the front. Once it's exactly in front of you, you have it from 90-degree angle from the side, and then from this moment on it actually gets less interesting because you have it a bit more from the back. So there is also not such a long time where it's really nice and you have a good composition, you have a good kind of posture or a position of the bird. So from the moment I think now it's a good moment, I just press down the shutter button, and depending on the situation, this can be for 1 second or it can be for 2 or 3 seconds, but usually not more than that. So I'm not so worried about filling the buffer in these situations. I still have a few days of photography in front of me, but I already did a lot of videos so far, more than I have ever done on any photography trip. And I'm curious whether you like them, which one was your favorite, maybe if you have wishes for future photography trips that I'm doing, what kind of content you like, more tips about special type of photography like birds in flight, backlit, maybe backlit birds flying and so on. Or maybe you can also let me know which video was your favorite so far. I will be happy to hear from you, and see you in the next video. If you want more tips about bird photography in general, please check out my ebook with more than 100 pages where I talk about the camera settings, useful equipment, and of course composition, light, and many more things.